On the British Isles, located in the northern part of the Atlantic, there is no population today. However, life once thrived here. In the 19th century, a lighthouse was built, overseen by 3 keepers. Mysteriously, they vanished without a trace almost 100 years ago, and since then, this event has been shrouded in mystery. It sounds eerie, doesn't it? The story of the lighthouse keeper's disappearance on Flannan Islands was meant to be the central theme of the video. I began to delve into the mystical details of the investigation, studying the conclusions of the inquiry, witness testimonies, local myths, and the history of lighthouses. It becomes truly interesting here. The disappearance of 3 people from the Flannan Islands is just one of many mysterious and sometimes unsettling events that occurred at lighthouses in Europe and the United States in the 19th century. Keepers disappeared, went insane, or even committed suicide. Thus, this is not just about the mysterious case at the Flannan Lighthouse. It is a story about how and why lighthouses became perhaps the most cursed places of that time. In my memory, the lighthouse has always been associated with romance, a tall tower by the shore, the sound of ocean waves, and the cries of seagulls. This image radiates hope, salvation, and light in the vast darkness of the future, just as it was for sailors. However, for those who served at the lighthouse, tall lighthouses on the coasts of Europe and America soon gained a notorious reputation. In the 19th century, people living nearby shared chilling and mysterious stories. Some of these tales were fabricated, while others were true. Note, this video will contain truly unsettling details. So if you plan to snack while watching, be careful not to drop your cookies. On December 15, 1900, the transatlantic steamship Archtor passed near the Flannan Islands and noticed that the light on the lighthouse was not lit. At that time, 3 staff members were supposed to be there, working around the clock. Upon arriving in Edinburgh, the captain of the Thora reported the non-functioning lighthouse to the authorities. However, due to worsening weather conditions, inspections were only carried out 11 days later. As the rescue vessel approached the islands, the captain sounded a loud horn and launched a signal rocket. The lighthouse remained dark, and the keepers showed no signs of life. But he was the 4th lighthouse staff member and had spent the last few weeks on leave. Moore gets into the boat and docks at the island. Climbing up the steep staircase, he approaches the base of the lighthouse, only to find that the entrance door is locked. Upon entering the living quarters, Moore notices the stopped clock in the kitchen, untouched dishes, and an overturned chair on the floor. Everything else is in its place, except for the people. The only living creature in the lighthouse turns out to be a canary in a cage. 2 more sailors from the rescue vessel land on the island. They carefully search the area but find no one. The 3 lighthouse keepers have vanished without a trace. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of the 3 lighthouse keepers remains relevant to this day, provoking speculation and theories even after a century. Let's start in order with the events leading up to the disappearance. In 1899, the Flannan Lighthouse was built on the Flannan Islands. This archipelago consists of several uninhabited rocky islands north of Scotland. More specifically, the lighthouse is located on one of the islands called Isle Moor, which translates from the local ancient language as dead elf. In the Middle Ages, people lived in these lands, as evidenced by the ruins of an ancient temple. However, by the time the lighthouse was built, the area had been uninhabited for centuries. By the end of the 19th century, the only inhabitants of the Flannan archipelago were the lighthouse keepers. The crew consisted of 4 people. 3 worked at the lighthouse, while 1 rested on the mainland. Every few weeks, supplies were delivered to the island, and one of the keepers was replaced. Look at this image. It features 3 of the 4 men, the missing keepers. The photo was taken shortly before their disappearance. 3 of them were at the lighthouse, carrying out their duties, while the 4th was resting on the mainland. Second from the left is James, the chief keeper, who was 43 years old and had spent half of his life at lighthouses. Next to him is 28-year-old Thomas Marshall, the youngest and the only bachelor on the team. The third missing keeper is Donald MacArthur, a 40-year-old keeper who was temporarily replacing an ill colleague. The fourth in the photo is Robert Muirhead, head of the Scottish Lighthouse Administration, who oversaw the investigation into the mysterious disappearance. A few days after the rescue vessel arrived on the island, Robert prepared a detailed report. In addition to the stopped clocks, the prepared cooking utensils, and the overturned chair, he uncovered other intriguing details. According to the rescuers, the beds looked as though someone had slept in them that morning, while the condition of the fireplace indicated that it had not been lit for at least several days. The outer clothing of 2 keepers was missing, while Donald MacArthur's jacket remained in place. This means that he left the building without warm clothing, which is extremely dangerous in mid-December on a North Atlantic island. Robert Muirhead also conducted a thorough inspection of the island itself, which was not difficult since its area is less than 1 square kilometer. On the eastern and western parts of Island Moor, there are small docks. While the eastern dock was in good condition, the western one showed numerous damages. The small railway leading to the lighthouse for transporting goods was severely distorted. The tracks were torn up and bent. The storage box for mooring ropes was overturned, and its contents were scattered across the area. In some areas of the island summit, chunks of turf had been torn away. The story spread quickly, giving rise to numerous theories and speculations, from a giant wave unknown to humanity to a ghost supposedly inhabiting the island, or even a giant seagull abducting people. The emergence of such conjectures is quite understandable given the notorious reputation of this place. To better understand the context, it is necessary to discuss the history of lighthouses. Believe me, it is much more complex than it appears at first glance. It is not just a tower with a light. The need for lighthouses arose with the active use of ships. The primary role of these structures is to assist in navigation. The first lighthouses were likely simple torches set up on the shore. Over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greeks and Romans also created something akin to lighthouses. However, large-scale construction of illuminated towers in Europe did not begin until the 17th century, and by the 19th century, lighthouses had become an integral part of the coastlines and islands of Europe and the United States. During this time, transatlantic voyages were gaining popularity, which contributed to the erection of new lighthouses. Automatic lighthouses only emerged in the second half of the 20th century. Previously, keepers lived in them continuously, with responsibilities that included a variety of tasks, including assisting in shipwrecks. However, the primary function of the keepers was to maintain the light at the lighthouse around the clock. Due to long absences from home, lighthouses were staffed either by men who preferred solitude or by family couples. Nevertheless, prolonged stays in confined spaces under often adverse weather conditions became a true test. Incidents and accidents that undoubtedly occurred at the lighthouse quickly became shrouded in mystique. For example, on Boone Island, in the northern part of the United States, 100 years before its construction, a British shipwreck occurred here, and sailors spent several weeks awaiting rescue. Weather conditions posed a serious challenge. Rescuers arriving at the scene encountered not only survivors and the deceased, but also signs of cannibalism. This is not the only chilling story associated with Boone Island. In the mid-19th century, when a lighthouse was already standing on the island, it was manned by a young married couple. The man passed away just a few weeks into their watch, likely due to illness, or as a result of being struck by a powerful wave. In any case, his wife spent nearly a week on the island with the body of her deceased husband. When the relief crew arrived, they found a distressed and disoriented woman. A few years ago, the film The Lighthouse was released. Although not all viewers were able to fully grasp what was happening, we are more interested in the fact that the film's creator was inspired by a true story. The plot centers around a lighthouse on Smalls Island, which today remains almost in the same condition as it was 2 centuries ago. Many people watched the film. Today, it looks the same as it did 2 centuries ago, remaining an uninhabited island off the coast of Britain. The only lighthouse at that time was wooden. During this period, 2 keepers took their watch, Thomas Howell and Thomas Griffith. Their acquaintances knew that disagreements often arose between them. During a duty shift, an accident occurred, resulting in the death of Thomas Griffith. Keeper Howell faced a difficult choice. By throwing the body into the sea, he risked being accused of murder. The well-known strained relationship between the 2 Thomases complicated the situation. Ultimately, Howell chose the more responsible path. He decided to keep the body. To do this, he fashioned a coffin and secured it outside the lighthouse. Due to a strong gust of wind, the coffin was dislodged and continued to hang outside. The horror of the situation was exacerbated by the fact that Thomas Griffith's hand was protruding, creating the impression that the deceased was waving from the coffin. Each day until the end of the watch, Howell watched the hanging coffin with the decaying body of his colleague while simultaneously maintaining the operation of the lighthouse. The constantly arriving keepers described the condition of Thomas. The stories I shared are indeed frightening, but the even more horrifying reality is that in the 19th century, there were many similar cases. These events became the foundation for myths about cursed lighthouses and the ghosts of keepers. Nevertheless, most tragedies at lighthouses could be explained logically. Consider those who chose to become lighthouse keepers. Many of these individuals were initially loners and, one could say, a bit eccentric. Spending weeks on a desolate island in poor weather conditions is not a job for everyone. even a mentally healthy person could face challenges. Additionally, having to share space with a random workmate for several weeks inevitably led to conflicts. Recall how the lockdown went 2 years ago. In the 19th century, there were numerous recorded instances of one keeper killing another at lighthouses in the United States and Europe. However, such examples do not explain the disappearances of people on the islands. After the incident with the 2 Thomases, a new rule was established. There must now be 3 keepers at each lighthouse at the same time. Such was the staffing on the Flannan Islands. It is unlikely that they could all go mad at once, kill each other, and then disappear. So, what really happened? The disappearance on the Flannan Islands occurred in 1900, which effectively already belonged to the 20th century. By that time, significant changes had taken place at lighthouses around the world. New technology could help explain the mysterious disappearance. To understand this, it's necessary to recall a bit of history. Last time, we discussed the active construction of lighthouses in the first half of the 19th century. But did this solve the problem of shipwrecks? Not always. It wasn't about the design of the lighthouses themselves or their lamps, most of which were oil-based. The main issue was the insufficient brightness of the light, which meant that sailors simply couldn't see it. Everything changed thanks to a French physicist. Construction was underway actively. His most famous invention is the Fresnel lens. Understanding the genius of this invention does not require a PhD. Basic knowledge of physics, like mine, is sufficient. When you turn on a light bulb, the light spreads in all directions. However, as you move away from the source, its brightness decreases. The Fresnel lens, with its prismatic elements, collects and refracts the light, directing it in one direction, which significantly increases brightness and visibility. This principle is still widely applied in various fields, from film lighting equipment to car headlights. However, the primary use of the Fresnel lens in the 19th century became lighthouses around the world. The sizes of the lenses could reach 2 meters or more, and additionally, they rotated, creating a flashing effect that enhanced the visibility of the light at a distance. The rotation of the lenses was managed by keepers at the end of the 19th century. The rotation of the lens was controlled by the keepers. At the end of the 19th century, an interesting innovation was introduced, the mercury bath, which quickly gained popularity. The base of the Fresnel lens was placed in a large quantity of mercury, which significantly simplified and softened the rotation process. This invention was a breakthrough for lighthouses. Several decades ago, keepers not only inhaled dangerous mercury vapors, but also constantly came into contact with it using their bare hands. At that time, the toxicity of mercury was often underestimated, and poorly educated keepers knew little about its harmful effects. Symptoms of mercury vapor poisoning include dizziness, irritability, and memory deterioration, as well as other cognitive impairments. There is a serious opinion that mercury could have been the main cause of the mental disorders experienced by keepers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Now, a key question arises. Could mercury be responsible for the events on the Pluto Islands? If not, then what could have happened? Let's examine the key theories. We will not discuss the version involving the ghost of the dead elf, but will focus on more realistic hypotheses. The first theory, megawave. A detailed log was maintained at the lighthouses where keepers recorded their daily reports on completed tasks and other important information. During the investigation, an unusual entry was discovered in this log. Thomas Marshall recorded a wave of colossal size, so terrifying that the chief keeper, Ducat, prayed, while MacArthur cried. This was the last entry in the log, made on December 15th, the day the lighthouse went dark and the keeper went missing. The theory of the megawave could explain both the destruction on the island and the disappearance of the keepers. They could have simply been swept away. However, there were no reports of such waves in the vicinity of the islands on that day. Furthermore, it does not explain why one of the individuals was found without clothing. If the cause was the megawave, then who made the entry about it in the log? This does not make sense, especially considering that it was later determined that no such entry existed in the log. Day. This is fiction. The second theory, murders. One of the keepers could have dealt with his colleagues and then thrown himself into the ocean. Given the known facts about the fate of the lighthouses, this version seems plausible. First, one of the keepers might have been driven to madness from the mercury bath or loneliness. Second, a domestic conflict is possible. It is known that Donald MacArthur was dissatisfied and hot-tempered. The main drawback of this theory is the lack of evidence. A fight or murder typically leaves traces, blood, broken objects, and so on. However, nothing of the sort has been found either at the lighthouse or on the island. The third theory, the most likely one, is that the cause was a regular storm. The keepers realized that bad weather was approaching. James Ducat and Thomas Marshall set out to secure the boxes with ropes, possibly left at the lighthouse. Meanwhile, MacArthur noticed that the storm was much stronger than they had anticipated and hurried to warn his colleagues. The most likely cause is a regular storm. The situation developed rapidly, which explains the chair that was found on the floor and the discarded jacket. As a result, all three disappeared alternately with the wave. It was neither a megawave nor a gigawave, but a completely ordinary one that can be encountered during a strong storm. This is likely how events unfolded in December 1900. However, there is also the possibility of a giant seagull theory. We will probably never know the full truth. One thing is known. Despite the many tragic and mysterious incidents in the 19th century, lighthouses continued to symbolize hope and salvation. This was made possible by the fact that someone always kept the fire burning.